a very well-known geopolitical strategist, author, and speaker, was invited on to Joe Rogan, and they started to talk about Bitcoin. I'm talking about Peter Zehan, or Zehan, or Zehan, however you want to pronounce it. Anyways, he had some awful misinformed takes about Bitcoin, and we're going to straighten them up and provide a counter narrative. So look, over the weekend, this tweet from Peter Zehan just totally blew up. Okay, this piece from his interview on Joe Rogan, and I mean, he just had Bitcoiners completely stunned. All right, here we go. Without further ado, we're gonna play this whole thing, and we've got some choice counter narrative for him, because smart as he is, as credentialized as he is, doesn't appear to have done the research on Bitcoin that he should have. So let's dive into this terrible clip.
There's no intrinsic value to this asset. And now it's starting to be priced appropriately. So it has what's Bitcoin at? 16,000? It has another 17,000 to go down.
Duh, really?
Yeah, there's no intrinsic value to this product.
And do you think that people have just inherently lost faith in the idea behind crypto because of FTX?
Well, it became an ideology, and whenever you invest based on an ideology, you're going to make some decisions that are a little divorced from math.
And what do you mean by ideology?
Well, the people who really like crypto are convinced that it's the currency of the future, and that a decentralized ledger is the way to go, and that anything that is controlled by a government entity is by definition a negative, and if it's done by the private sector freely, it will be better. And that's just not how currency works. Currency is a method of exchange and a store of value. And for that, there has to be a degree of trust, and you have to have it managed in terms of volume. I mean, one of the craziest things about Bitcoin is that there will never be more than X number of units of Bitcoin. Well, by default, that means it can't be used for trade, because the whole idea of economic activity is that there's expansion, which means you need more currency to lubricate and manage that expansion. If currency is locked in at a specific number, you get monetary inflation, and that is one of the fastest ways to destroy an economic model.
So because...
Okay. There was a lot to unpack in what he said there, and let's dive right into it. Here we go. Okay. So one of the first things that he was talking, one of the things that he mentioned, was that, and I guess we're going to go backwards, right? Because one of the last things that he mentioned was essentially that you require an expanding money supply. Now, of course, this is shared by Keynesians, and essentially anybody who is a proponent of fiat money, which is government issued currency, which has absolutely nothing backing it. They're all perfectly fine with the expanding money supply. There's also the MMT, the modern money theorists, right? And it's the same thing, right? How expanding money supply is good. We're going to provide a counter narrative. Here we go. This is from Mises.org. Here we go. It's held that in the free market, by failing to provide enough gold, can cause money supply shortages. This in turn runs the risk of destabilizing the economy. The whole idea that money must grow in order to sustain economic growth gives the impression that money somehow sustains economic activity, which it doesn't. Okay? People do that. Anyways, if this were the case, then most third world economies would have eliminated poverty by now through printing the large quantities of money. That's right. That's right. When the money is not desirable, when the money does not have the qualities that the people need, that the people demand, then people seek higher quality of money. Not that difficult. So, right, this is why all these poor countries haven't been able to print their way out. Why? How come? They just print the money and boom, that's it. They're loaded, right? Wrong. They're not. Anyways, money's main job is simply to fulfill the role of the medium of exchange. Money doesn't sustain or fund real economic activity. The means of sustenance are provided by real goods and services. By fulfilling its role of the medium of exchange, money just facilitates the flow of goods and services. In a free market, in similarity to other goods, the price of money is determined by the supply and demand. I don't know what the hell Peter's talking about. That for some reason, if we don't have this expanding money supply, then all of a sudden the whole economy is just going to disappear. That's it. It's gone. People just, all of a sudden, you don't need to buy anything anymore. All of a sudden, nobody needs to perform any trade because the money is deflationary and it's just killed the economy. Makes no sense at all. Anyways, consequently, once the market has chosen a particular commodity as money, the given stock of this commodity will always be sufficient to secure the services that money provides. That's right. Once the market has chosen a particular commodity as money, the given stock of this commodity will always be sufficient to secure the services that money provides. In other words, you don't need to continually print money for money to work. This is just complete nonsense. As the operation of the market tends to determine the final state of money's purchasing power at a height at which the supply of and the demand of money coincide, there can never be an excess or deficiency of money. Each individual and all individuals together always enjoy fully the advantages which they can derive from indirect exchange and the use of money. No matter whether the total quantity of money is great or small, the services which money renders can be neither improved nor repaired by changing the money supply. The quantity of money available in the whole economy is always sufficient to secure for everybody all that money does and can do. Okay, so this is the Austrian way of looking at money. And to be perfectly honest, what we have right now is an economy built on a lie. The lie, number one, that the money continually needs to be printed. And number two, that we need these incompetent, depraved, power-hungry fools in the government and in the banks controlling it all. He made another point, explaining that Bitcoin is an ideology, and whenever you invest in an ideology, you get detracted from reality. So look, we're not going to get into the long conversation of the philosophical points of money, but on the point that Bitcoin is an ideology, I say to you, sir, have you looked at the USD? The US dollar is backed by nothing, and hence the name fiat. Fiat money is government-issued currency that is not backed by a physical commodity such as gold or silver, but rather by the government that issued it. The value of the fiat money is derived from the relationship between supply and demand and the stability of the issuing government rather than the worth of the commodity backing it, as is the case for commodity money. Most modern paper currencies are fiat currencies, including the US dollar, the euro, and other major global currencies. So, what is our takeaway from that? Our takeaway is that the US dollar, among other currencies in the world, are backed by faith. An ideology, perhaps. They don't even see the cognitive dissonance. They don't. It's so insane. Okay. Anyways. All right. We're gonna go on to the last point. Okay. The last point or I should say, the first point he made was intrinsic value. Okay. There is an absolutely awesome article by Connor Brown, written in 2019, and it's on Medium. The link's going to be in the show notes, of course. It is called Bitcoin Has No Intrinsic Value, and That's Great. Obviously, I'm not going to read the whole entire article, but we are going to go through some choice points, okay, that do help make the distinction. Before we dive into this article, I just want to explain that, to my knowledge so far, there are two types of intrinsic value, okay? There is the intrinsic value that is to be found behind a stock, right, an equity. And then there is the intrinsic value of a commodity like gold or silver, right? So besides its trading value, you can, quote unquote, always use gold for electronics or fillings or something like that. So I just wanted to point that out, okay? So there's two types of intrinsic value, but I just wanted to make that clear before we get into this, because essentially we are just covering intrinsic value as a whole, so to speak. Bitcoin cannot be used as money because it does not have any intrinsic value as a commodity. For something to be a viable money, it must first be accepted and used for some other commodity purpose, intrinsic to the item, then slowly become a money over time. For example, because gold can be used as jewelry and electronics, people naturally stockpile it to store value. Bitcoiners have made several compelling arguments against this on the grounds that one, intrinsic value is subjective, and two, Bitcoin does have intrinsic value as a good for censorship-resistant payments. Here, I will argue the Bitcoin skeptics are right. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value as a commodity. Intrinsic value is an old idea. Even Aristotle wrote about the importance of money being intrinsically useful and easily applicable to the purposes of life, for example, iron, silver, and the like. It's no wonder that this idea has persisted. Commodity value has been essential to humankind for thousands of years and is directly evident to the layman. Despite its ancient origins, intrinsic value is not directly linked to monetary functions. A good money needs to be many things: portable, easy to trace, scarce, durable to store value, fungible, and divisible as a unit of account. But an alternative commodity use is not one of them. Sorry, Peter Schiff. So why do many critics claim money needs intrinsic commodity value? Right? Why does it need this intrinsic value? There appears to be two main reasons: an appeal to history. Many skeptics denounce Bitcoin's lack of intrinsic value simply because they are accustomed to stores of value doubling as commodities. Put simply, they're living in the past. And I can't not agree with that. The fact that all previous forms of value had a physical form does not mean a new store of value must also be physical. People were making similar arguments about physical shopping during the rise of the internet. And we all saw what happened there. Amazon. Anyways. Yes and no. Bitcoin is not Amazon. It's way bigger than that. It's just a terrible comparison, but unfortunately, all we can ever do is compare things to stocks and companies, and I digress. Okay. Bitcoin skeptics claiming money needs to be a useful physical commodity will seem equally ridiculous a decade from now. I agree, Connor. Secondly, the appeal to authority. Today, many who voice concerns about intrinsic commodity value trace their arguments to Austrian economists such as Menger, Mises, and Rothbard. Those writers strongly emphasize the importance of money and its impacts on society. For them, commodity value and money have been inseparable since their earliest writings. One of Menger's seminal works on the origins of money begins by describing money as the fact of certain commodities becoming universally acceptable media of exchange. Mises later built upon this understanding in the theory of money and credit. We may give the name commodity money to that sort of money that is at the time a commercial commodity, and the name fiat money to money that comprises things with a special legal qualification. Following in the mental footsteps of previous Austrian economists, many critics apply these outdated frameworks to attack Bitcoin. While commodity and fiat monies were the only two possibilities for early Austrian economists outside of credit instruments, times have changed. In our digital age, the distinction between commodity and fiat money has lost its value. It should be immediately apparent that Bitcoin does not fit neatly into this dichotomy. It has no use as a physical commodity, but also does not exist through any legal decree. To me, I mean, this is just absolutely beautiful, right? Because it's completely outside of the system, which is exactly what we need a proper money to be. We really have no idea what humanity can be with us, every single individual having the capability to be able to store their value themselves and not be censored by the government, the banks, whatever it is. I mean, it's just, in fact, if the skeptics had done their homework, they would realize that Mises was a Bitcoiner at heart as well. He recognized the problem inherent in commodity money, but saw gold as the best of bad choices. Okay, so I think that these articles, they bring out some very good points. Number one, we made do with what we had. We now have something significantly better that offers a higher level of the qualities of money that we are looking for. And it offers those qualities with a higher degree of certainty than anything we've ever had in the past. And, you know, I watched that clip with Peter Zehan or whatever his name is. Anyways, it was actually really disturbing to me that essentially instead of just saying, look, I don't really understand the nuance behind Bitcoin, and granted, I may not understand, I may need to refresh myself on money. He didn't say any of those things. Instead, what he did was that he went and just blindly attacked Bitcoin on points that have already been debunked. And what's really scary is that people like him, they have a massive audience and they're highly credentialized. And unfortunately, we live in a culture and in a society where this credentialization unfortunately surpasses the truth. You simply need to be credentialized, and the majority of people won't really push back on what you're saying, and that's a problem, right? Because we've taken authority over truth, and that's not fair to any of us, and that's definitely not fair to any of our future generations.